From Robinson Crusoe to Castaway, we've all trembled at unbridled brushes with death, retold by victims rescued at sea. After all, the ocean is nothing but a vast, liquid desert. There's no food, no shelter, nothing to drink. In every which way, the view dispels the same thing: a hopeless and unending blue on blue. Add in the thrill of ferocious predators who lurk just beneath the depths, and a shipwreck out on the open sea is a surefire death sentence, because if rescuers don't show up within the first 48 hours, they most likely never will. Learning how to survive takes skill, courage, faith, and no small dose of fortune. Here are 9 unbelievable stories of survival at sea. Jose Salvador Alvarenga. Fisherman Jose Salvador Alvarenga had been stranded in the Pacific Ocean for over a year by the time his loved ones saw him again in his home of El Salvador in February 2014. He was 37 years old and had had a brutal determination to live when he washed ashore on the Marshall Islands after his boat crashed during a fishing trip that had set sail from Mexico. The fisherman was unrecognizable, with shaggy hair and a bushy beard, when Ebon Islanders discovered him some 8,000 miles from where his journey began. The man was unable to walk without assistance and was mentally troubled due to being stranded alone for so much time. His shipmate, Ezequiel Cordova, had starved to death 4 months into the ordeal and finally fell overboard. A story Alvarenga had to share when he travelled back to Mexico for an emotional meeting with the deceased man's family. Those who knew Alvarenga described him as a warrior upon returning after his unfortunate duel with fate. 8. Tony Bullimore. Whoever says candy bars are bad for your health should take a moment to appreciate this remarkable story of survival. Sailor and businessman Tony Bullimore famously survived for 4 days at sea on a single bar of chocolate alone, after his boat capsized during the solo round-the-world Vendee Globe race in 1997. A former member of the Royal Marines, Bullimore's life was rumoured to have met its fateful end by the time he was dramatically rescued by the Australian Navy in the freezing waters of the Southern Ocean. The survivor, known by many as the British Bulldog, was considered a legend in his hometown of Bristol up until his death in 2018. 7. Kay Longstaff. When a woman plunges off the side of a cruise ship while travelling with her family from Venice, people everywhere begin to speculate on the woman's intentions. After all, representatives for the highly popular cruise ship Norwegian Star insist there are no known cases of someone acting responsibly to have fallen off the side of a large commercial ship. The woman, named Kay Longstaff, survived for 10 distressing hours in the Croatian Sea, utilising her yoga skills as well as singing to keep her going. The 46-year-old woman said she felt very lucky to have made it alive throughout the whole ordeal and thanked her rescuers, the Croatian Coast Guard, who tended to some minor scrapes and bruises. Longstaff is extremely lucky to have survived the fall and the time spent in the water, but 99% of victims who plunge off the side of a cruise ship are never seen again. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to what lurks below and hit the bell to get notified of future releases, such as this one. 6. Louie Jordan. When most set out for a fishing trip on a clear day over pristine waters, they never think that day could very well be their last. What should have been a simple voyage for a man named Louie Jordan became a pitiless test of mental strength and endurance, lasting 2 months until his rescue off the US coast in March 2015. The shipwrecked victim was spotted sitting on the upturned hull of his stricken boat, a 35-foot vessel called Angel, as surely a guardian angel she must have been, when the German-registered Houston Express came upon the dehydrated man about 200 miles off North Carolina. They swiftly took him to a hospital so the man could receive treatment. Remarkably, however, despite a shoulder injury and unquenchable thirst, Jordan was able to convince the staff he was healthy enough to be discharged only a few hours later. It didn't hurt his situation, but the man held valuable experience of sailing to rely upon. Yet he owes the story of his survival to strong religious beliefs, as well as the unwavering determination to live. 5. Philo, Etueni Nassau, and Samu Pelesa. A funeral service commenced, with over 500 in attendance, to mourn the death and disappearance of 3 teenage boys from a small island called Tokelau. At the same time, 500 miles away from their home in between Samoa and Fiji, 3 emaciated boys eagerly began slurping up seawater, a desperate indicator that an end has come. For Philo, Etueni Nassau, and Samu Pelesa, growing up among the Pacific island chains meant sailing became second nature, since people used small boats to venture from one island to the next as a frequent mode of travel. Yet when the boys set sail on October 5th, 2010, with enough water to last 2 days, they could not have known what was to come. Shortly after departure, they lost sight of the shore, and disorientation overcame them. Forgetting which way was home, they became lost, drifting farther and farther toward an empty horizon. When the water ran out, the 3 hopeless boys turned to rainwater, and eventually they became so desperate they caught a bird and ate it. After months and no news, the community gathered and bowed their heads to pray. Surely the teens were lost for good. With hours to live, they were finally spotted by a fishing boat and rescued. All in all, their life-threatening adventure at sea lasted 55 horrifying days. 4. Tammy Oldham Ashcraft. Hollywood brought to the big screen this heartbreaking tale of life and death, starring actress Shailene Woodley in the 2018 film Adrift. The harrowing true story honors Tammy Oldham Ashcraft and her fiancé, then 23-year-old Richard Shaw, as they embarked on an adventurous journey turned deadly in the autumn of 1983. Setting off from Tahiti on a boat bound for the beautiful San Diego, the couple had sailed head-on into the devastating Hurricane Raymond. As the full force of its wind pummeled their vessel, the craft quickly turned to wreckage, and Sharp was swiftly lost at sea. Ashcraft, with a split open head and battered leg, was able to fashion a makeshift sail from the boat's remains and set a course for Hawaii. The survivor quietly suffered and accepted death for 41 days, powered by peanut butter alone, when finally she was picked up off the coast by a research vessel. 3. Girija Kiichi. Japanese captain Girija Kiichi holds the Guinness World Record for the longest known time that anyone has survived on a non-moving vessel adrift at sea. Together with one of his sailors, the skipper managed to survive for approximately 484 days after their cargo ship was damaged in a grave storm, which hit the Japanese coast in October 1813. The team had been on a voyage from the central city of Toba to what is now Tokyo, yet ended up drifting far out into the Pacific Ocean. Finally, Kiichi and his only remaining sailor were rescued by an American ship near California in March 1815. The men had survived on a diet of distilled seawater and soybeans, as several hundred bags had been stored away on their vessel. Unfortunately, all other crewmen had perished quickly due to scurvy. 2. Poon Lim. When the British merchant ship SS Ben Lomond was torpedoed by a German U-boat in November 1942, there was one sole survivor. Clambering aboard a wooden raft, Chinese sailor Poon Lim had a paltry supply of food and water, which he was forced to replenish by fishing, hunting birds, and collecting rainwater throughout his 133-day tryst in the South Atlantic. Thanks to luck and a trio of fishermen, Lim was rescued in April 1943 at the mouth of the mighty Amazon. The survivor was awarded a British Empire Medal by King George VI upon his return to the UK. and he lived out his days, a valiant survivor with high respect, until he died naturally at a very old age. Nobody is thought to have survived for that long at sea on a simple raft alone. 1. Steven Callahan. If you're going to build your own boat, you better have qualifications, such as inventor, naval architect, and sailor under your belt. Throw in invincible, just for good measure, and you've got Steven Callahan. 76-day survivor, adrift in the Atlantic Ocean on a ruptured life raft. In January 1982, Callahan set sail from the Canary Islands on a small boat he built with his own 2 hands. Yet 6 days into the trip, the vessel sunk mercilessly into the sea. The castaway was left adrift on a 5-foot life raft with 3 pounds of food, 8 pints of water, a solar sill, and a makeshift spear. Along the way, the sailor had to contend with malnourishment, sunburn, repeated shark attacks. What's more, when the raft sprung a leak, Callahan managed to keep the device afloat for 33 more days until his rescue. In all, the shipwrecked victim survived over 2 months at sea, and his raft travelled approximately 1,800 miles, shifting between life, death, and panic-stricken purgatory. Have you ever come face to face with death? Tell us your story here, and please subscribe to what lurks below for more harrowing horrors at sea.